If you've ever had your options position have the bid disappear at the market open, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Welcome everyone to the webinar today. Thank you very much for joining us. I am your host, Ryan Faloona, and I am here with Shay, aka Humbled Trader. So Shay, how you doing today?
Hi everyone. Hi Ryan. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I really appreciate you're on the other side of the world right now, and you're still kind enough to join us. Cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm in Taiwan right now, and right now it's midnight. I'm exactly 12 hours ahead of the market.
We actually had one of the viewers was saying, I need to be careful because you take your nap up until noon Eastern, and he was worried that you weren't going to be awake.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think the first thing that we should do here is we should get started and introduce you to some of the people that are in here that may not know you. So I think the way that we should do this is tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the stock market.
Okay. So I'm mostly a day trader, and I've been trading for about 6 years now. I started trading pretty much right after college, just as a way. At the time when I was starting out, was just gambling, right? Just as a hobby, with some other a little bit of side cash from work, some extra dough that I want to play with, and it started out just as a hobby, and obviously, you win some, you lose some when you are trading as gambling. But I eventually, obviously, I fell in love with it, and it's been something I'm really passionate about. And so, despite all the losing in the first year, I still stuck around with it, and then just trying to make it work. So that's kind of how I got started.
I totally agree. That's actually very, very similar to me too. I started shortly after college. I've been interested in it since I was in high school. And the whole thing about losing, I got to tell you, that's totally normal. I had a friend that was older than me that was involved in the market when I started, and he told me, Ryan, you need to learn to lose before you can learn to win. And I didn't know what that meant. I was like, oh, that's BS. Come on, no way. And of course, I lost, and I learned my lessons from my losses, and that's what actually kept me in the game. So that seems to be a complete normal progression for anyone that starts this. And now, when you did start, did you start with like a big account? Did you start with a small account? That's questions I get all the time. How can I trade with a small account? So I'm just wondering how it went for you.
I think when I started out with like the first ever version of Robinhood. So at the time, it was like 2014, and you need like one of those exclusive invite links to get the app. So I think, well, technically speaking, I started out with like swing trading, buying like Nvidia or like AT&T, and then selling a couple of days later. I didn't know what that was. I just knew I was buying and selling stocks. So I guess it was swing trading. But I started out with, I think, even with a Robinhood account, I had maybe only like $2,000. So it's definitely a small account. But I was just playing around with it, and obviously it didn't work, right? Because the very first version was like delayed data, and you couldn't like see any charts. Oh wait, even now to this day, you still can see the charts. Wait, I mean, nowadays you can see the line charts, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I mean, that's how I got started though, with free commission trading on Robinhood. Yeah, the very first version, I remember.
Yeah,
I had to like beg my friend's friend to get one of those links. It was fun.
That's crazy. Now, do you still use Robinhood, or did you quote unquote graduate to a larger broker?
Wait, right now?
Yeah.
No, it's a joke. I don't use Robinhood.
Yeah, of course.
I still have it. Believe it or not, I still have like the Nvidia shares I bought when I first got my Robinhood. No, I guess right now it's more like an investment account now. But after Robinhood, I started trying to be more. When I was trying to be more serious about day trading, I opened Interactive Brokers account. That's the I guess the first real day trading account I got.
Awesome. And would you describe, what kind of trader would you describe yourself as? Day trader, swing trader, mix of both? Do you ever deal with options at all?
I predominantly trade just stocks. So I trade mostly momentum, low and short as a day trader. I do also do swing trading, but that's also like on the side. I focus more on day trading.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can you recall what your worst and best trade are? That's always a fun one for me.
Oh my God. So my worst trade is actually, well, I guess this will be the case for everyone who takes a big loss. The worst trade is usually the trade where you had like the most conviction on. So my worst trade was on Snapchat. I think maybe like in 2016 or 2017, and that worst trade was really bad because it was already after I became consistent, and I was already making decent money at the time from day trading, and I took a giant loss on Snapchat, and I was bag holding the stock for a long time. I will say short. Did I mention I was short?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, I have donated plenty of money to the Snapchat fund. Snapchat is one of those stocks. I can't ever seem to get it right. Every time I try to trade it, it seems to go against me. It's one of those where I just can't seem to hit it. So I feel your pain on Snapchat for sure. Do you remember what your best trade was by chance?
It was during the crypto hype. Early 2018 or late 2017 on LFIN.
Elfin. Oh, this.
Yeah, that was a day trade.
This was wild. This was wild. So this is what we're talking about here, right? When it went from like pennies to like 140.
Yeah, it was crazy back then. And well, at the time it was listed on NASDAQ, I believe.
Right.
And they also had options. So when it was halted for a couple of weeks, I had some put options, but it expired during the time it was halted. So that didn't work out so well.
That's like a bad dream, because you had the puts, the thing absolutely craters coming down from 140 and they expire while the stock is halted. Let that be a lesson to some of the new traders out there. Halts, they're nasty. And a lot of the times, if it's halted for a while, you don't necessarily want to be in that. So thanks for sharing that with us. I remember these days when any company would just add blockchain or Bitcoin to their press releases, and it would just go bananas. So that's hilarious. I got to ask you, did you get your Lambo from this trade?
I got my Corolla. Does that count?
Yes, it does. Yes, it absolutely does.
Hey, it's fuel efficient. Okay, it matters more.
There you go. All right. So the first thing that I want to ask you is a lot of the questions I get from newer traders is, how can I do this? And obviously that's a you can't just answer that question. It's a very, very long answer. How can you be successful in trading? And one of the things that I am constantly telling people all of the time is that consistency is key. Don't try to look for those trades that are going to be able to let you buy a Lambo, because those are few and far between. Instead, be consistent, come up with a plan, trade your plan, and execute your plan. So with that as the backdrop here, do you have any tips for new traders, or tips on being consistent, or anything that you can pass along to some of our newer traders that might be watching today?
I think it's normal for new traders when they first start to feel really lost, right? Because there's so much going on. But I think my number one tip is to focus on just one or two setups, one or two things that's actually making you money, and ignore everything else. All the 95% of other things that's not really related to your setups that's been working. You're gonna hear a lot of noise, like, on social media, on what other people are saying. You really have to focus on the setups that that's been proven to giving you consistent profit. The moment you deviate from that, when you start trading other people's setups or what other people are pumping or what the other people are saying, is the moment you're going to start losing. So focus is my number one tip.
I think that's a really good tip. And you know what? I've actually experienced some of those pitfalls myself where I was, I'm on Twitter and I'm watching CNBC and there's a lot going on and everyone's throwing out different plays and everyone's saying, you should follow this and do this. And I'll be honest, that actually hurts me. I'm much better when I can focus on what it is that I'm doing. Do you have any favorite setups that you like in terms of like, either chart formations or news releases or anything like that? Do you have like a favorite?
Yeah, I'm not really, so I guess I don't really trade patterns because I don't really consider myself like a technical traders. I don't trade like these head and shoulders or something. Like people say these patterns to me all the time and I have no idea what they're talking about. My favorite setup is just large caps with good news and I buy the dip on those setup. That's been proven to be consistent, at least for me. Buying the dip, never buying the breakout. And then, another one that works, depending on the seasonality, is buying overnight small caps. So those two was kind of my bread and butter when I was building my accounts in the earlier days. And they still work even to this day.
Yeah, and actually, I actually empathize with you a lot on that too, because that's one of the things that I really like doing. I really like buying some of the large cap stocks, especially ones that I'm familiar with. I tell people all the time, trade what you know. If you use technology all the time like I do, if you read different technology magazines and news and all of that, you're probably going to be able to react better and trade those stocks better. I'm not a biotech wizard. Someone can release a phase 2 result with a bunch of technical information in it, and I don't know if that's good or bad. So even though those stocks can go crazy, I try to stick to what I know, and I've had a lot of success doing that. And I really like your idea of buying the pullback, because that's the stock market boiled down to its most rudimentary facet. Buy low and sell high. And that's exactly what I try to do day in and day out. So that's really awesome. And speaking of bread and butter, I have like my favorite list of stocks that I trade all the time. Things like Apple, Square, Visa, PayPal, Netflix. Yeah, do you have like a favorite group or sector of stocks that you follow on a regular basis?
Yeah, my favorite, it changes year to year, but this year has been Boeing, Roku, also the vaccine stocks, Moderna and Mvax, as they are making new highs right now.
Moderna. This thing has just been absolutely crazy. You've been able to find, and when I say you, I mean anyone, any trader. You've been able to trade this on the long side, the short side. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. And I totally agree with you. The COVID headlines, they actually have a feeling very similar to the blockchain and Bitcoin headlines that we were getting several years ago, like when you were playing Alpha. It's like any company that has any type of inroad with a vaccine or a treatment, they put out PRs like this and the stocks can run like crazy and provide some really, really great opportunities. So that makes a lot of sense. Are there any other consistency tips that you might have?
Also, I guess my other one is don't trade on your last one. If you only have like $1,000 left, do not day trade with it. Do not try to grow it to $5,000 in one day. If the best trades you can make are when you are financially stable, when you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay rent, how you're going to put food on the table, how you're going to take care of family. So take care of your personal finances first before trying to, flip that $1,000, the last $1,000 you have, into, something else that's going to change your life, because it's probably not going to happen.
Absolutely. And I think that's another really great tip. I tell people the same thing all of the time. If you have to be able to deal with risk, and if you're trading on your last $1,000, your emotions are going to be all over the place. And I don't know about you, but the toughest person I battle on a daily basis is myself. It is battling my own emotions, being able to admit when I'm wrong and being able to recognize mistakes and then learn from them. And one of the things that's helped me is the money that I have set aside in my trading account, that's for trading. If I, if I make a bunch of money and I need to, take some out and actually use it, that's one thing. But otherwise, my trading account is for trading. And this is actually why I also have another job while I trade, because that helps alleviate some of that emotion. Now, I know that you said when you started right after college. Did you go right into full-time day trading, or did you also have another job that you kind of supplemented it with? How did you make it work?
No, I was working. I had a job right after college. I was working in film VFX. So I really believe the only reason I could, kind of come out ahead and started trading full time is because I knew during the early years when I was learning how to trade and trying to build up my account, trying to be consistent, is because I know I have my main source of income at the time, which was my job. So that's how I could actually trade with a more logical head in my logical head, and not have to worry about, like you said, having to worry about finances. And that's really the key, I believe. If you don't have a source of income to fall back on, you're not gonna follow your risk. You're not gonna follow your stops. You're gonna bag hold your loser for way too long because you care about every single dollar from your trading account.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I've done that. That's happened to me. I've been so invested in something where I've been like, I'm going to wait for this to turn around. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold it. And sure enough, that turned into my biggest loss. I was adding a low float stock called ADMP over and over and over again. And eventually, and I believed it, I believed the whole thing. And eventually I just had to realize, I had to admit to myself, look, Ryan, you're wrong. You need to be able to get over this. And I took the loss and I've moved on from there. But what I try to tell myself is that as long as I learn a lesson, then it's valuable. And I try to bring that to every single loss that I take. And that actually really helps me become more emotionally stable and more consistent. So that's great. Anything else before we move on?
No, I think money management is really key to trading, because 90% of trading is emotions. Absolutely. And when you're emotionally attached, you're not gonna make the right decisions.
Absolutely. Could not agree with you more. Okay. So moving on right now, one of the things I'd like to discuss is how you actually use Pro on a regular basis. What tools in Pro do you use? Do you have favorite tools? Anything where you actually use Benzinga Pro to help you in your daily trading?
Yeah, so I kind of categorize my tools into like pre-market and then also intraday. Okay. Pre-market, the tools I use is the movers as a scanner. So I use that as a way to pick up the morning gappers on the day. So once I have a list of the top gainers from there, I'll have filters like market cap, previous day close, and volume. Once I have those criteria set in, and then I just click whatever shows up on the movers, and then I'll start reading the news from those top gainers.
And this is, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because movers is actually one of my favorite tools. And I do the exact same thing. Every morning when I start Pro up, I open up movers, I turn on the squawk, which I know we're going to talk about soon, and I go through the list of gainers and losers and actually review the news and the chart, just to see if there's a setup there that I would be interested in trading. So movers is one of my favorite tools. Actually, recently, we just added another period to movers so that you can scan what's moving in a 5-minute period. Previously, the shortest period we had was 15 minutes, but we got a lot of requests for 5 minutes. So we went ahead and added that to the movers tool. And that's actually been kind of a big step up for us. So movers is definitely one of my favorite. I do the same thing. I like to differentiate it between gainers and losers. So I examine the gainers. I click through these different stocks. I observe if there's one of these at the top that says, why is it moving? This often will tell me why a stock is doing what it's doing, even if I'm not prepared for it. So, do you use movers during, I know you said you use it in the pre-market. Do you ever use it during the regular session as well?
Yeah, then I'll just move the session, change that to regular.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So this is one of my absolute favorite tools. And one of the things that's so great about this is that it's very, very easy to use. I've actually never used interactive brokers. My broker is TD Ameritrade, and I use the Thinkorswim platform. And the Thinkorswim platform has a very, very powerful and robust scanner built into it. But I actually find myself using movers more because it's so much easier and it's so much faster for me to use.
Yeah.
Do you have a scanner in interactive brokers, and do you prefer movers to that?
No, interactive broker scanner is pretty terrible. Yeah, in the Thinkorswim one, I tried it. I do have used it before. Before I was able to afford premium tools. That was fine, but once you find the list, you have to physically go and find the news. The reason I like premium tools is because it kind of connects everything together, right? So it saves me more time. So if I see the list, I can just click it and I can look at all the research, all the news, all the analyst calls and everything. So I'm just trying to save time.
Absolutely. And time is a huge, huge asset, especially in the morning when you're trying to prepare for the opening bell. And you're normally on the West Coast, right? So you're up really early in the morning. It's super imperative that you save as much time as possible while doing your research. So
waking up at 4 a.m. is not fun.
Every day too. But hey, that's why you take the nap though. That works. I mean you know what I like about that though is that you do what you have to do and then you figure out a way to make it work for you. So waking up at 4 a.m. every single day is definitely difficult, but you find a way to actually make that work by taking your rest in the middle of the day when the market is, not necessarily having its most crazy time like it does right around the open and in some cases the close. So that makes a lot of sense. So moving on with the mover, is there anything that you do? I know that you said you like to use the mover so that you can review the news. Do you ever have like any filters that you use on a news feed? Do you have like favorite types of sources or news articles that you're looking for or anything like that?
Especially during, I guess, we can call it a sector bubble. Maybe not bubble, but a sector hype, which is, COVID-19 vaccine pandemic. During times like these, I'll have those keyword search in the news filter. So you can either type in like vaccine or COVID-19, something like that. And during the crypto hype, you type in, crypto or blockchain. That's a way for me to filter out, the potential stocks that's gonna move because they have that keyword in the title. But that doesn't mean everything's gonna move. Just a disclaimer. It's just a way to find out those stocks sooner.
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the entire points of having Pro is because like I have a news feed in my broker's platform, but I don't get the opportunity to filter it by keywords. I don't have the customization options. A lot of the times, one of the things that I'll do, for example, is when I have my news feed up here, I'll go ahead and click on Watchlist and filter it by my watch list of the stocks that I trade all the time, because that makes my job so much easier when I'm actually going through the news and trying to figure out what's moving. If it's stocks that I'm more liable to trade, I want that news before I want some other type of news that I don't really know how to process. And so the customization actually is one of the huge reasons why I really like Pro. And I love hearing that one of the things that you like to do is review the news. There are so many people out there that just look at a chart and they're just trying to recognize patterns on a chart or trade with some type of technical analysis. And to me, news is an underlying catalyst that can cause news is always going to trump a chart. A chart could say that this is going to take off, and if the company releases a PR that they're going bankrupt, that chart doesn't mean anything. So the fact that you're actually reviewing the news and using that to your advantage is a huge plus. So that's really awesome. That's really awesome.
I think it's important to have because your news is the fundamentals and your charts is technicals. When you're trading, I think just relying on a singular side is not enough. When you're day trading, you want kind of the fundamentals and the technicals to align. That's when you have the strongest thesis and the strongest setup, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. Now, when you review the news, do you also then look at a chart? Do you do any technical analysis based on what you see in the news? Do you use technical analysis for anything? Any type of support, resistance, entry,
Mhm.
exit, anything like that?
Oh yeah, for sure, sure. I use the technicals for support resistance. Obviously,
Hmm.
the most basic one. But you know, it depends on how the chart led up to the news, right? If it's bought into, then you know there's a good chance that's gonna sell off. If you know the news happened when the chart is right on support, then you know maybe we can see a good breakout day on the stock. So it all depends on how the combination works.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'm big on that too. Like
Mhm.
I'm not like a great technician. Like I've read about a lot of these patterns. I've read about a lot of different things that you can see and how they're supposed to trade. But honestly, the ones that I use the most are going to be support and resistance. And I use that a
Mhm.
lot for entry and exit. And I do very similar to what you do. I actually combine that with the news. So if something is on support and we get a news story that sounds like it's positive, there's a good chance you're going to be able to get a pop off that. Even if it's not a
Mhm.
multi-day mover or a swing trade, there's sometimes opportunities to make day trades by doing the exact same thing. So
Mhm.
I'm really glad to hear about that as well. Now, do you have are there any other tools besides the news feed that you really like?
So newsfeed and mover, that's what I use pre-market the most. During regular hour, you know, I use the block trades.
Okay.
If I'm trading a large caps, I don't per se use the block trade and see, oh, the stock is there and I buy it. That's not really how I use it. I kind of take note of what's going on the block trades, and if I see the large caps that happen to also be on watch or a chart I've been following for a while, then you know I make note of that. It's all relevant information, but just the block trade by itself, it's not gonna be something that I just buy or sell basing on what I see on the block trades.
Right. And actually that's something that I end up explaining probably every single day that I'm at work.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking about block, I also use block trades. I love that you use this because I think that they're great, but I don't necessarily use it as like a buy indicator. Like when I see a
Mm-hmm.
block trade, I don't say, okay, now I need to go buy. That's just another data point for me. So if I'm reviewing news or if I'm looking at a particular chart and then I also see there's a whole bunch of activity and several block trades coming in about that particular stock, then that's another data point where I'm like, well, maybe I should look a little bit closer here at what's going on because there might be some underlying catalyst. So awesome that you don't actually use it as like a buy or an exit, but I also
Mm-hmm.
do find these very very helpful. I'm a big fan of the ones that say at the ask or near or above the ask or even below the bid,
Mm-hmm.
because that tells me that there's a whole lot of selling or buying pressure in this particular name, so much so that they're going above or below the bid, and that really helps me kind of like take a deeper look at it. So block trades are great. Anything else?
Benzinga squawk.
All right.
That's
So
probably
let's
my favorite.
so let's talk. Let's talk about the squawk. I want to give you a little bit of history about me as it pertains to the squawk. It'll only take a minute here. When I
You don't
first
squawk
started
before?
trading, when I
Oh,
first
okay.
when I first started trading, I was in a chat room and I was trying to learn and all of that. And one of the things that I realized is I really needed to have a reliable newsfeed. And
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that when I was trying out a couple of the different companies, I noticed that they had this thing called Squawk or some type of audio feed. And I very, very quickly realized that, wow, having Squawk is super helpful because even if I
Yeah.
have it on and I don't have Pro on my screen, if I pull up my platform or something like that, I can still hear the information coming and I can actually react to it really quickly because I'm not necessarily reading it. And it's funny too, because when it comes to Squawk here at Benzinga, I'm so used to hearing Charlie's voice. I swear I could be in the middle of a mall with hundreds of people and Charlie could be saying something and I can pick him out for
Yeah.
sure. He has got a super unique voice. I do it all the time. So that's really awesome. Squawk is one of my favorite features coming on the platform here. It's so great to meet another Squawk fan. So tell me, how do you use Squawk regularly? What are you listening to? What are you hoping to hear from it?
So there's actually a running joke on my YouTube channel that the Charlie is my one true love because every time he talks, I make money.
That's pretty good, though. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I think obviously, with any other feature of any tool, you don't just buy or sell anything that you hear Charlie say. You eventually learn how to use the news alerts that Charlie provides. There are some stocks that that could be a good buy. Obviously, you look at the charts, you know the history of the stock. There are some stocks that will react immediately to the news feed. Then for those stocks, then you could buy, and a lot of times you get some pretty decent profit from that pop. But there are also other stocks that by the time when Charlie says it, that maybe these stocks are not good buy signals. Maybe you have to flip the other side. So you definitely have to train yourself, and it's up for you and everyone else, the trader, to know how to use the tool. But that's part of the tool about the Squawk I love, is that it's very versatile. There are some news you just ignore, some news you buy, and there are some news that you press the short button.
Yep. No, that's a really good point. And that's another thing that I get asked all of the time is, how do I use this? How do I tell if it's a buy rating? And I always try to tell people, when Charlie is squawking, he's not necessarily saying that this is a buy or a sell. He's reporting something that's happening, and it's up to you as the trader to then make a decision on what it is that you're going to do. In some of those cases, maybe you do buy, hoping for a continuation of the pop. But in other cases, like for example, if it's a stock that is up on seemingly no news and all of a sudden it's got a volume spike, well, hey, maybe that is a time to short. Every new opportunity is different, but that's one of the things that's so great about the Squawk, is that it's super versatile. I'll never forget, I bought Apple after it split a number of years ago. Haven't sold a share since.
Nice.
There was a Squawk one day where it was just silent. And then all of a sudden I hear Charlie say, Apple to join the Dow. And my ears like perked up like a cat. I was like, oh my God, Apple to join the Dow. This is great. I'm so glad I bought this. This is going to keep going. This is going to keep going. That was at 90 something. We're at 6 today. So
wow.
There's you can use it to your advantage. I really like your piece of advice of watch the chart, kind of watch it first, figure out how things react to it, and then play off of it once you've devised a system. That's absolutely brilliant. That leads back to our consistency, and that leads back to being able to control your emotions. So that is really awesome. So, and then the other thing is, yes, Charlie is a real human being. He has been.
I was wondering about that. Is he a robot? He's so calm and collected. He sounds like a robot.
And that's the thing. He's so calm because he's been doing this for so long. He's been involved in the market for over 20 years. He knows exactly what he's looking for. He's got sources all over the world. And that's one of the things that really helps. He's so calm. On days where the market is down by 1,000 points and he's reading out news, I'm like, how on earth is this guy so calm all the time? I'm like, out over here.
My investment's down 20% and you're just sitting there saying that like nothing's happening. Come on, Charlie.
Charlie is great. Charlie is really one of my favorites. So now, do you use I'm assuming that you use the Squawk pretty much all day. Maybe you turn it off when you take your nap, so he doesn't wake you up, or do you leave it on as kind of like an alarm?
Depends. If it's a day where I know there's a lot happening, market's hot, I might leave it on, and I'll use Charlie as an alarm clock. Just wake up if something's happening. But most of the time, then I'll leave it off.
And I've actually done the same thing. I've been around the corner in the kitchen, but my Squawk is on, and I can hear Charlie from the other room saying something, and I'm running back to my computer to see if there's something that I can do. So I've been there, done that. So that's awesome. Is there anything else that you want to mention about the Squawk tool or Charlie or anything like that? Did we cover everything?
I also use Benzinga Squawk for when I'm trading earnings. Not all the time, but the Squawk news, obviously it comes out before the actual report. The written part is actually posted, right? So having the audio alerts on that when you hear the earnings numbers is extremely helpful.
I totally agree. And you know, and that's the other thing with the earnings number, like when an earnings report comes out, if it comes out in a PR, sometimes it takes me a while to actually like go through the PR and figure out what the numbers are and then mentally know. I write them down ahead of time. Plan it out ahead of time. That's all great. But when I'm actually reading the PR, sometimes that takes me a while to figure out exactly what these numbers are. And I almost can never beat Charlie. He is so fast at it. He's got that stuff down like you would not believe. So he has been a huge help to me, especially around earnings. Now, I generally don't trade in the aftermarket. So a lot of the times, like if I'm playing earnings, I'm playing it as a binary event, and I use options to define my risk ahead of time. So for example, let's say Apple was going to have a report and I thought it was strong. I would buy calls ahead of that print, and I'll be waiting for Charlie's voice to hear what those numbers actually are. And then I'll go back and actually read the report or perhaps listen to the conference call itself. But Charlie is always the one that's delivering those numbers to me first. And he does such a great job with that. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, do you ever trade in the pre-market or the after hours? Like when you hear these earnings numbers, do you trade off of them? How does that work?
Yeah, so I do day trade after hours when there's stocks that's with earnings that's highly anticipated. I have to say this first. This is not recommended for new traders. Because you have to be so fast, you have to be able to analyze the news the moment you hear Charlie say it. You have to know the expectations of the earnings number and what the analysts, the street, what everyone is expecting the company to do. And you hear Charlie say the actual results. You kind of have to process the difference really quick, whether the difference is to the upside or downside. You have to be able to analyze that on the fly, and then you trade it if it's tradable. You can't do this on every single stock. So I just want everyone to hear that. I don't want everyone to, try to do the same thing I do and lose money. You only trade it when there's actual a setup there, and you understand what Charlie is saying, the numbers, the earnings beat or miss. Whether it's beat or miss, it's tradable, but you just need to know the expectations and the surprise factor.
And are these like quick trades for you? Are you trying to like get in and get out, or do you sometimes buy it because the report is good, hoping to maybe swing that for several sessions or maybe even a week or two?
I think it depends on the stock. A lot of times, most of them do turn into quick trades, but on the stock like Tesla, when they make earnings moves, it can go like 50 points. So that might be like a 20-minute move, or that might be a 10-minute move. So it depends on the stock. But when a stock like Amazon drops, it has dropped like 200 points before. So it depends on the range of the stock.
Sure.
But again, it's not for new traders. So
and I totally, I remember thinking when I first was learning about this and I would see companies report earnings and I would see these huge moves, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, I got to trade this. There is a ton of money to be made here. But you're absolutely right. They move quickly. You really have to understand exactly what you're doing. And I realized early on, like, yeah, I'm better off. That's why I use options. I'm better off defining my risk ahead of time instead of trying to react to something that I might not understand that's moving around like crazy in the after hour session and then end up hurting myself. So really good piece of advice. Don't jump in when you're brand new. Make sure that you watch and practice or something like that first. Now, when it comes, do you ever use the earnings calendar in Pro to kind of plan out the earnings or get the estimated or the surprise numbers ahead of time?
Oh yeah, for sure. In order to trade earnings effectively, you have to, because in calendars you see the expectations. So if you go to calendars, you see the EPS, the estimated is the right word. Estimated EPS, estimated revenue. So those are the expectations that you need to know if you're trading earnings. Whether it's after hours at the announcement or the next day after the fact, you still need to know how much of a beat or a miss that the earnings report is. So you find out from calendar the earnings calendar. It's been really helpful, actually.
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite ones too. Obviously, you can view it by each individual day, but one of the things that I actually like to do is I actually like to plan ahead, right? So if I want to look ahead here at next week, for example, I can go ahead and select next week and then review what companies are going to be reporting earnings, if it's confirmed and all of that, and then what the actual EPS and revenue numbers are. Now, I know when we had talked about this before, you told me you write down the ones that you're watching or your favorite ones, and you kind of have that handy when it's time for the actual print. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. The estimate numbers, I write it down when I'm trading those stocks. And I have a Google Calendar too. Like I put a reminder of, Google is announcing earnings today, or Roku is announcing today. I also have a calendar of all my favorite stocks. I call them the earnings movers. Basically all the stocks that traded earnings before in the past, and I know whether they miss or beat, they're gonna move a lot. So that's the kind of stocks I love to trade.
Yep. And same with me. And that's it. That's another really good piece of advice right there, is that if you have an idea of how the stock is going to move after earnings, you're going to be much better prepared to actually trade that when you get these numbers to come out. And so another thing, this is something that I do personally with this particular calendar, is I actually filter the calendar by the watch list by my favorite watch list as well, because this gives me at a glance all of the stocks that I'm trying to watch and then when they're going to report. And that actually helps me plan out, okay, I need to be available on this day after the market, or I need to wake up even earlier for this day at the market. I mean, I played JP Morgan calls the other day and they reported in the morning, and I wanted to make sure that I, was showered and ready and everything before we actually heard that report, because I wanted to read it and study it and go through it and all of that. And so, the calendar is a huge help for me. I absolutely love that you use that in addition to the actual Squawk tool. That's fantastic. Do you use any of the other calendars, or do you pretty much just use the earnings calendar?
Just earnings, I believe. Yeah. Is there any other calendar that I'm missing on my?
Well, yeah.
So any other tools that I should be using?
Yes. So it really depends, and the reason that I asked you that is because this is a question that I get all of the time, and so the earnings calendar is one of the ones that I use the most, because obviously earnings are incredibly important to stocks that I'm invested in and the trades that I'm trying to make. But we actually have 13 calendars in the particular calendar tool. One of the other favorites here by both the customers and also myself is the analyst ratings calendar. And the analyst ratings calendar is real great because it'll tell you when a company has like a new report and whatever that report actually is. And because it's in a table format, it's very easy for me to use. And what's great about that is I can actually filter the analyst ratings calendar. So if I wanted to only see things that were upgraded, for example, or I only wanted to see new initiations on a particular stock, the calendar actually makes it super easy to do that. In addition to the analyst ratings and the earnings calendar, I really like the economics so that I can keep tabs of the different economic numbers. And it's not just US, it's worldwide, as well as the IPOs. You can also use the splits. So it's the splits and the reverse splits calendar. That actually really helps. Offerings can be very helpful. And then the unusual option activity. I'm big into options, so I like to be able to examine what some of the different unusual options are. So calendar is one of my all-time favorite tools. But again, like we were talking about earlier, it's not as if I see, okay, well, looking right here, ticker XPO has a buy rating on it, so I'm going to buy it. That's not how I use it. I use it as one of my data points, and then I factor it into my trading plan. It's just another piece of information that is helps me actually make a trade. So that's great. So are there any other tools in Pro that you really like?
Depending on the seasonality, there's some times where I'll use, I guess, it's a tool not a lot of people talk about. It's the Watchlist tool, but you have to find the stock. So for example, I'll use, because I trade some of these like small cap turd stocks. So in a newsfeed, what I right now it's not really working as well. So I just want to disclaim that. In the newsfeed, I used to type, reverse split or stock split, those keywords, and that will show me the small cap stocks that recently had a split. And then I'll put them into the watch list tool. Okay. And on that tool, that allows you to start tracking whenever the company releases like any news, or whenever they file any SEC filings, or any news associated with the company, because there's a reason these small cap turd stocks want to reverse split their share float. So that's been really helpful.
Awesome.
Again, it's not a tool where you find those stocks and you just buy a boatload of them. No, you have to know how to use those filters, and you know how to use the watches. But it basically allows you to track those companies and have the emails sent directly to your inbox and on your mobile phone.
And so just to demonstrate that, here at the top of the watch list tool, there's this little bell icon. And if you click on that, you can set up to get these email alerts or even an email summary. You can also set up sound alerts. I particularly don't use that because I'm always waiting for Charlie, but you can set that up if you really want to. Now, because you're here today, I would like to tease a couple of things about the watch list. Nobody else really knows this other than the internal people here at Benzinga. So I wanted to go ahead and kind of
sneak peek.
Give a sneak peek and break some news.
Yeah.
So number one, on my screen here, you can see on the left-hand side, we have a buy and a sell button. And what we're thinking here is eventually we'd like to be able to move to where you or anyone can actually place trades directly from Benzinga Pro. Now, what that means is that you would still need to have a broker, and you would actually need to link your broker into your Benzinga account. But this is coming. We call this trade integration. And when we first start here, we're going to have a list of these 4 brokers. Okay, Robinhood, E-Trade, Ally Invest, and Tradier. Now, I know this is not some of the bigger ones. I know Interactive Brokers is not on there. TD Ameritrade is not on there. My broker. We will be adding them as time goes on, but these are going to be the 4 that are going to start. So you're going to be able to, if you're like looking at your watch list and you realize something is happening, you're going to be able to buy and sell right from Benzinga Pro. I don't have an exact release date on this. I know that there are people internally right now testing this, so I believe that it's very, very close, but keep your eyes peeled for that. One of the other things that you actually can't see on this screen that we're going to be releasing that I think is going to be a huge help, I would love to get your opinion on it, is we're going to add another column here that's going to allow the user to enter in notes about a particular stock or a particular trade that you made. So if you have a watch list, like you were saying, if you have a watch list with splits information, if you make a watch list about stocks that are going to go through some splits, you can actually also type in notes there, and it's all going to live in one spot. And we're hoping that that's going to make it easier to follow your trading plan and just have as much information as possible. Do you think you would use something like a notes field here in the watch list?
Yeah, that would be really helpful actually, because a lot of times when I have too much stocks in the watch list, I forget why I put them in the first place. Yeah, sure, you can separate them into different watch lists, but it will help a lot if I can have those notes section.
Okay, awesome. So I'm actually going to bring this up to the development team today because I know there are a bunch of people that have asked for this. Jason, the head zinger over here, he said that this is a great idea. We absolutely want to do this as soon as possible. So I'm going to check into that, and I'm going to say that Humble Trader and all of the people that joined us today are really, really excited for this feature and try to move that along. So I'm really glad we're able to give a sneak peek. And you know what? You're right. I really do feel like the watch list is an underutilized tool. For at least in my situation, I'm always trying to trade the same stocks. So I always want to know what those stocks are doing. And sometimes, if I'm flipping through charts or if I'm looking at a chart, there's just too much there. A watch list is really, really helpful. It tells me exactly the information that I need to know. And if I ever walk away from my computer or if I have to go out for some reason during the day, I turn on email alerts, and I always bring my phone The emails go right to my phone, and it allows me to keep tabs on things even if I'm not sitting right in front of my computer. So that's real great. Again, you can have, as you can see, I've got a whole bunch of different watch lists in here. And
Oh, wow.
here's the other really cool thing about Pro, right? So
Yeah.
you had talked about using splits or creating a watch list out of splits. Some of the times, one of the things that I like to do is I like to go into the use the movers tool like we talked about earlier. I copy some of the tickers that are here. I just hit Control C on my keyboard, just like you would do if you were using Excel or any other spreadsheet program. And then when you actually go to the watch list, let me create a new one here. We're going to call this Humbled Webinar. All right, when you actually create this watch list, I just go ahead and hit paste, and it will paste all of those tickers in at once, so that if you're going to make a watch list with a whole bunch of different tickers on it, you don't necessarily have to sit there and type them in all the time. You can copy and paste them right into the watch list. So I totally agree with you. This is definitely underused. It's something that I use every day. Here's my main page for Pro, the page that I keep up all day. You'll notice that in the upper right corner is my watch list. That is visible all day long, every single day, because it's that important to me. So love that you threw that out there. So so we're getting to about 10 minutes left here. I tell you what, this really flies. I feel like we've only been at this for 15 minutes. We're almost done already. Is there anything else that you want to mention, either about your trading style, using Pro in general, before we take some of these questions here from the audience?
So I think after you learn how to trade, all these tools are here to help you kind of save time and be more efficient with your trading. But you have to realize that you have to know how to use the tool. That's the key here. Obviously the tool is here to help with my own setups, with my own trading style. And I use different features of the tool for different styles. It's more important to, whether you are using the tool or not, you have to know how to manage your risk. You have to know what you're trading, and you cannot be trading everything and everything just because the tool has those features. I think that has to be the biggest takeaway here. At the end of the day, it's up for the trader, you and everyone else to, you're holding the buy or sell button. Yep. It's up for you, the trader, to make the decision whether to take the trade or not. So, you have to learn how to trade first before you can actually utilize every single feature and know exactly what you're getting out of the tool. And it's a tool that's helped me a lot with all the almost all of my trading styles, for both the large caps, small caps, and whether going long or short. So I'm very happy to be able to use the tool today.
I really appreciate that. That is like the entire ethos of our company, is that we are trying to create things that help people. So to hear you say that makes all of the work that we do worth it. And it's not just you. We have thousands of users that feel exactly like you do. And it really, really is a gratifying feeling. And I would like to highlight the point that you just made, because again, this is another question that I get all of the time. They say, how do I use this? I don't feel like I'm getting my money's out because I'm not using every tool. And what I tell people all the time is, you don't have to use every tool in order to be successful. We have a bunch of people that buy Pro just for the Squawk tool, because Squawk is so important to what they're doing that they don't even really care about some of the other tools. Now, what happens is when they start using the Squawk, then they figure out things like, oh, wow, there's a news feed here where I can get all of this news information. That's really helpful. Or, oh, yeah, there's a watch list that I have built in, or I can do research and look at financials. So we try to provide as many options as possible, but what the right answer is what works for you. And not everyone is going to use the same tools. Not everyone is going to use every single tool. It's just, it really, the takeaway is whatever it is that helps you, that's what you should consider using. So I really appreciate that. And that's, like I said, not a day goes by where I don't get asked about that. So that's a really
Right.
good, really good piece of advice. Now, we do have some questions here. We have a whole bunch of questions in the chat as well. The first question that we got was actually emailed in by someone that really was not able to make it today. They're going to get the recording, but they really, really wanted me to ask this question. So the question is, how come you are not a big fan of doing options on blue chips? Why do you prefer the stock to options on some of those larger price stocks?
I think it kind of goes back to the one of the first thing I said is to focus on what works for me. And in terms of day trading stocks just works so much better, because when you're trading options, I have to take into consideration the expiration and the premium and the Greeks and everything else. I definitely have tried years ago, and it just didn't work as well for me in comparison to trading stock. I still trade options for swing trading, but I don't day trade options anymore, unless I want to like a lotto call or something like that.
Lottos are fun. Every trader I know does lottos at some point, so that's totally normal.
Yeah.
That's totally normal.
Tesla lottos, those are definitely worth it when it's breaking out. So
one of the things I tell people about options is that when you choose to use options, you actually make the choice to give up your biggest advantage as an investor. Now, there's a lot there, so I want to quickly dissect that. When I say you give up your biggest asset as an investor, that means you're giving up time. Options are going to decay as time goes along. So every day they're going to be worth less and less, which means that you have to be sure that what you think is going to happen is actually going to happen. Now, on the flip side of that, the reward can be great because it's a leveraged trading product that can help you actually increase your profits. The way I use options is I use them to help with risk management. So if I'm going to buy contracts, if I'm only going to spend $1,000 on a position or 800 or even something less like 200 or 300, I can buy options. And if everything goes wrong, which will happen, if everything goes wrong, I only lose the money that I purchased with those options. So what's really important there is position sizing, which you've talked about a lot today. You want to make sure that you don't actually expose yourself to too much risk or buy too much. So I think that's a great question. Options are great for some people. They're not right for everyone. If you don't use options, don't feel as if you're doing something wrong. It's just a different trading vehicle. And if you are interested in them, practice first. Use a paper trading account. Do something to help you learn how they trade. It's going to help keep you safer. Now, I got another question here. My question is how do you make a swing trade strategy using Benzinga Pro? You spoke a lot about Pro today and you do it in your videos. I'd love to know how to make the best use of Benzinga Pro for swing trades.
I think swing trading, at least when I swing trade, there has to be a fundamentally changing news for the company. So News is one thing I take into consideration when swing trading. So that's definitely something you can find from the newsfeed filter. And also another thing is, especially when it's a large cap stock, that goes back to the block trade feature we talked about. A lot of these swing trades that's gonna break out, you're gonna have seen the stock have a lot of call activity, a lot of block trades days or weeks before the actual breakout. So a lot of times you kind of, when you stare at the feature long enough, you start seeing the same tickers, the same buyers coming in to buy the stock, the same call activities, call sweeps, put sweeps. So those things are definitely gonna help you when you are swing trading those tickers.
Okay.
So that's how I personally use it.
Awesome. And so I know that you obviously have a daily routine. You've done several videos on your daily routine, but just for the sake of recapping that, can you kind of give us a very quick overview of how you fit Pro into your daily routine?
I wake up, the first thing I open is Benzinga and my broker account, and I start scanning the movers that we talked about. So I have it on for the entire pre-market session. So, that's when I do my morning prep. I spend a good 2 hours before the open reading through all the news. And then it's after reading through all the news and I filter out the stocks with the news that's worth playing. So I put that on my watch list. So that's what I spend the most time doing is preparation before the market even opens, right? And after the open, I just have Benzinga Squawk. I have the movers change to regular hours. And then, I still, if I see a stock running, I'll check the news. But I just have that on the side and actively trading. But the research, most of it is done before they open.
Absolutely.
And after hours, if there's earnings, and I'll also use Benzinga to trade earnings.
Awesome. All right. So that we are 1 minute shy. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Humbled Shay, where can people find you? Can we share some of your social links here with the group so people can actually find your content?
Sure. So you can find me on YouTube, Humbled Trader. You can also find my website at humbledtrader.com, and also my social media on Instagram at Humbled Trader, on Twitter as well, Humbled Trader 18.
Okay, so on Instagram, on the gram, as the kids say, you're just at
the gram. The cool kids are saying that nowadays.
So on Instagram, you're just Humbled Trader, and then on Twitter, you're Humbled Trader. What was the number again?
18.
18. Okay, so I'm posting those in the chat for anyone that just wants to copy and paste it. Remember, she's all over the place. She is on YouTube. She is on Twitter. She is on Instagram. Shay, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I hope that we can have you back at some time. We got a ton of questions. I couldn't possibly get to all of them. You have a lot of fans here. You got a lot of questions about Lambos.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Hopefully you can come back again sometime. So thank you very much, Shay. I really, really appreciate it. To everyone else that joined today, thank you so much for your time. And remember, until next time, Zingers, happy trading.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ryan.
You're very welcome.